Testimony of Eleanor. Eleanor was born into a financially comfortable family, but despite this, she had a childhood marked by instability, emotional neglect, and a lack of adult protection. Her parents separated, and after moving away with her mother and two sisters, she lived in poorer conditions and saw much less of her father. Without her extended family around her and with a mother who was emotionally distant, she was left to grow up largely on her own. Her desire for adult attention resulted in poor behavior at school. She was expelled in year 7 and placed in a pupil referral unit, which she was eventually excluded from as well. She attributes her disruptive behavior to a lack of desire and emotional capacity to engage with her education, as well as the lack of structure in her life. She was preoccupied with seeking attention, validation, and care. By the age of 13, she began to be groomed by older men whom she encountered locally, usually in the town center. Some were older white men, but there were also Muslim men connected to a newly opened restaurant in the area. As the grooming continued, Eleanor's behavior deteriorated significantly. She had frequent encounters with the police and was arrested often. During this time, older men gave her drugs and kept her in various houses. She believed these men were looking after her and offering her the care she craved. Whilst this was ongoing, her mother was unaware of her location but did not report her missing. No authority intervened regarding why she was often missing, arrested, and spent significant amounts of time with adult men. When she was 14, she returned home one day after being away and no one answered the door. Eleanor climbed onto the roof of the house and managed to get inside. She discovered the house was completely empty. Her mother had thrown everything away, including childhood photographs and personal items, and had left without telling her. She went to social services of her own volition and was instructed to go to her father. She was expected to travel to him on the train alone. She had no meaningful relationship with her father and only spoke to him occasionally. When Eleanor arrived, he made it clear that his new partner was his priority and that she and her sisters came second. His partner tried to get her onto a more stable path and back into education, but due to her previous exclusions, schools repeatedly refused her. In an ethnic minority-majority area, she was explicitly told by one school that she could not be admitted because she was an English girl and would be the only one. She was placed in a pupil referral unit, but the behavior of other students there did little to give her the sense of safety, structure, and aspiration she needed. She therefore ran away often. Frequent running away resulted in repeated arrests, and eventually social services decided she could be contained in a family setting and took her into care. While in care, she became more visible and accessible to men who were already looking for vulnerable girls, and she was once again groomed. On one occasion, some adult men approached her and offered her alcohol and a lift. She drank a small amount and quickly became unwell and lost consciousness. When she awoke, she was aware she was inside a house that appeared to be decorated for an Asian wedding, but she lost consciousness again. When she finally awoke properly, she found herself abandoned by the side of the road, unclothed, injured, and disoriented. She managed to make it back to a children's home. However, she was not asked what had happened, taken to hospital, or had any record. However, she was not asked what had happened, taken to a hospital, or had any record made of the incident in the case files. Following this incident, Eleanor went missing far more frequently. She would sleep rough in doorways, abandoned buildings, and taxis. No one at the care home asked her any questions about why this was happening. She was transferred to a different children's home, where men regularly collected girls from outside the home and sometimes came inside the building itself. The staff allowed this to happen. The men offered food, alcohol, places to stay, and a sense of belonging. But in reality, they were there to sexually exploit children. Eleanor became involved with an older man whom she believed was her boyfriend. He was involved in the drug trade. She was taken to Jersey and kept in a hotel for several days. She was not allowed to leave freely. Upon returning to the care home, no one questioned where she had been. She continued to be arrested for low-level offenses, particularly shoplifting. She was eventually placed in a young offenders institution. On one occasion, she was punched while being arrested, and this experience, among others, destroyed any trust she had in the police. From this point onwards, she saw the police as just another threat. When she was 17, Eleanor was present at a stabbing incident involving men connected to the grooming network that had been abusing her. She was not involved in the violence, but gave the victim first aid and called emergency services. She was arrested at the scene and charged under the doctrine of joint enterprise with conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm with intent. The case did not come to trial until 2 years later, when Eleanor was an adult, and so she was tried as an adult. She was sentenced to 2 years in prison. She believes she was criminalized for circumstances that arose directly from exploitation, neglect, and systemic failure, rather than being protected from them. Following her conviction, Eleanor converted to Islam. She did not do so for theological reasons, but practical ones, as a method of survival. In many environments she had experienced, Muslim girls were afforded some degree of protection relative to non-Muslims. She felt that conversion was a way to reduce risk and make herself less vulnerable. Before serving her sentence, she became pregnant by an older man and entered into an Islamic marriage with him, believing it might provide stability and protection. She was imprisoned with her young baby, an experience she found deeply distressing. Following her release, she was subjected to domestic abuse and coercive control. This abuse was not always physical. It involved isolation, monitoring, restrictions on her behavior, and the constant erosion of her sense of self. She was controlled through fear, guilt, and religious obligation. She was not allowed independence or employment, and others were told she was mentally unwell. This further isolated her. She met and remarried another man who took her to Saudi Arabia. She was entirely dependent on her husband for everything and was not allowed to leave the house without him. She felt isolated and powerless. This experience made her realize she needed to leave Islam, but she knew that apostasy carried very serious consequences and so kept it to herself. However, she was eventually able to escape Saudi Arabia and return to the UK with her children. Back in Britain with no home, work or money, she was raped by another man, became pregnant again, and felt forced into another marriage. Her abuse continued. She eventually escaped the situation after studying in secret and building up her sense of identity and confidence, enough to make a new life for herself. Eleanor believes much of the harm she experienced could have been avoided had the institutions adequately protected her. Children's services did not safeguard her. The education system excluded her. The police criminalized her. Eleanor: I'd had friends that were Muslim, girlfriends, and this never happened to them. They would be in the cars with us sometimes, but the men would treat them differently.